Manufacturers these days are terrible. They will tell you whatever garbage you want to hear to sell you their phones. But with the Lenovo Zuk Z1, the specifications and description don't even tell the full story. Welcome to my full review. So right off the bat, the Z1 is in a very strange part of the market. It's priced at just over $300, which means it's neither entry-level nor flagship, but at the same time, it manages to grind every mid-range phone I've ever used before into a pulp. So I think you'll start to be impressed as soon as you open the box. They've gone for a very clean design. It's actually quite refreshing coming from something like Xiaomi's packaging, where it looks like recycled cardboard. And the build is actually surprisingly good. It's taken a lot of elements, like a lot of these phones, from the iPhone 6, and that is not a bad thing. It's got a beautiful metal trim running around the edge, and it sits incredibly well in the hands. The weight is also not too heavy, and it is quite evenly distributed. However, even though the shape is nice, it is slightly on the thick side, coming in at 8.6mm, and the glossy back finish isn't exactly optimal. The display is fantastic. Turning it on, you'll be greeted by bright, vibrant colours and rich contrast. You can actually even go into the settings and further change those, but to be honest, right from the off, they're pretty fantastic. The resolution is 1080p, and for a 5.5-inch panel, that's basically the same kind of pixel density we've seen on the OnePlus One and the OnePlus 2. It's sharp. And then we have the performance, and this thing is on fire. Running the Snapdragon 801 processor and 3GB of RAM, it scores about 44,000 on Antutu, which is not exactly topping the charts, but it's well up there. It's also worth bearing in mind that similarly scoring chips, things like the MediaTek MT6753, which is in a lot of Chinese phones, is not nearly as good at performing as this one. Flicking through the UI and multitasking, the Zuk Z1 is indistinguishable from 2015 flagships. While a lot of people argue that you're buying old technology with the 801 being last year's chip, and technically you are, you have to consider that this thing was in the $600 plus flagship phones last year, and now you can buy it in a $300 package, and this phone has so much more to offer than just its performance, but it's actually a very fast chip. I mean, this is the same processor that powered the 2K LG G3. Every single game I've tried runs really quite well. I've tried 2D, 2.5D, all the classics, the Angry Birds, the Fruit Ninjas. I've even tried the modern Combats and the Novas, and even they run rather well. It's not quite a buttery smooth 60 frames per second, but to the untrained eye it's almost indistinguishable. And a refreshing change is that there's no overheating at all. I couldn't even feel the phone getting warm. Don't really know how they've done that, but it's nice. The internet browser is also really quick. As with all devices on Android 5.1 Plus, this comes built in with Google Chrome and Google Chrome only, but that is definitely a good thing. It's snappy, fast, pages load quickly, and the scrolling is smooth. So earlier on when I was talking about how the Z1 is so much more than its specifications, I'm going to get into that now. There's a lot of neat features, both hardware and software, built into this. So to begin with is Audio FX, and essentially it's an equalizer. But Zuk have managed to actually squeeze a huge amount of functionality into this app without actually making it very complex. It links to the standard music player and gives you a lot of flexibility with both speakers and headphones, and I actually found that I didn't even need to switch to using power amp like I normally do with phones. Next up, we've actually got different display modes depending on whether you're indoors, outdoors, or at night time, and it actually makes a significant difference. Outdoors, the screen becomes so bright that it's actually readable, and during nighttime it becomes so dim that it doesn't strain your eyes. Also really refreshing is Android 5.1.1. That is the latest and greatest. Very few Chinese phones can boast that, so I have to say that was also quite impressive. And another really strange feature which I've never seen built into a device is the ability to change the DPI. That's kind of the scale of the icons, how zoomed in or zoomed out it is, and it works. Similar to the OnePlus One when it initially launched, there's also the option to just not use the physical keys and actually just get capacitive ones on screen. That's also useful if you want it. And something I was amazed by is the fingerprint sensor. This is actually the best one I've ever used on any Western or Chinese phone. It's instant and detects from any angle. The speakers, good too. It's got a nice extra bit of bass that you don't normally see on mobile phones, and while it doesn't do voices total justice, it is great for games and gives them that extra punch that really makes you enjoy them. But as if it wasn't already good enough, the battery life is outstanding. They fitted this with a 4100 mAh battery, and combined with the efficient components and a lot of optimizing software, it actually lasts 2 full days of medium to heavy usage. So now onto the camera, which, although not outstanding, is still good for the price. Now one thing I didn't like is that although it does have 13 megapixel capability, to shoot in 16:9 ratio you do need to lower that to 9.7. But nonetheless the images still have a good amount of detail. Even zoomed in 4 times, it's capturing most of the light and still a lot is going on in the photo. Its low light performance is above average, but it doesn't have too strong a depth of field, and its video can be just a little bit shaky. Now the flash is really not too great, it doesn't light up the subjects too much, but I found myself not really needing to use it because generally speaking this is pretty okay in low light conditions. So while the camera is hardly poor, it is one of the weakest features of the Z1, which just goes to show how good a phone it is. However, if you place a really big emphasis on the camera, and that is almost exclusively what you use your phone for, there are better phones for the price. So there we go guys, that is the Zuk 1, and while on paper it doesn't quite match up to today's flagships, it feels every bit as fast, powerful and feature packed as them, if not more in some cases. The fingerprint scanner, the software on top is all pretty fantastic and all works brilliantly. I was very impressed all round. Thanks a lot for watching guys, I'm Mrwhosetheboss, and this is Insanely Cool Tech.